this is why you need, and I mean need, to watch Looney Tunes, The Day the Earth Blew Up in theaters. Not just wait until it potentially streams in the future, not waiting until it comes out on Blu-ray, even though you should buy it on Blu-ray as well, but while you need to see it in theaters. All right, here we go. So, I am not the biggest Looney Tunes fan. I love a show that came out in 2011 called The Looney Tunes Show. That show, I found it hilarious. I like the Looney Tunes characters, but I've never been like this big Looney Tunes fan. A lot of people who know me know that when I'm interested in something and like it a lot, I don't always hyperfixate on it, although I do a lot. But it is pretty evident that I like or love said thing, right? Like, you pick that up. Looney Tunes, if I told you I like Looney Tunes, you'd be like, wait, really? Oh, you never talk about it or anything, right? So I wouldn't go out of my way to say I'm this big fan of the Looney Tunes. But you need to see this movie for several reasons. Number one, it is good. It's a good movie. It's enjoyable. It's family friendly, kid friendly, but also geared for adults as well. So that's the first reason, okay? Also, in terms of the actual review of the movie, I'll do that, and then I'll give these other reasons. So if you just want to click off after that, that's fine. But really, I think you should pay attention to these other reasons because they are kind of important, and why I'm making a video and not just making some typed up Facebook post or Instagram post or something. It's why I'm specifically making a video on this, okay? But as far as review goes, it was enjoyable. I was hoping it would be a bit funnier. There is a lot of humor in it. However, a lot of it also, one, it's not my genre of humor, my comedy style. But two, it just didn't feel as funny as it could have. Like, I didn't find myself laughing as much as I often do during movies. But then again, sometimes in a movie theater, you laugh more when there's a lot of people. And unfortunately, my theater was pretty empty when I went to see it. Which is another reason that I'm making a video on this and trying to spread the word. But the plot was great. The voice acting was incredible. And if you grew up with these characters in any show, I think that they will sound pretty identical to you. Obviously, it's not Mel Blanc anymore. He passed away. But Eric Bauza, or Bauza, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his last name, but a very talented voice actor. He's been voicing the Looney Tunes characters for a number of years now, and he sounds probably as close as anybody in the whole entire world could get to sounding like Mel Blanc when it comes to voicing these characters. So if you're someone who's some reason like, well, it's not as good ever since Mel Blanc left, Eric does a phenomenal job. And I think you'll quickly forget that it's not Mel Blanc. And again, he's been doing the Looney Tunes voices for a number of years now, so chances are you've actually heard him more than you think you have. But the voice is incredible. The dialogue is great. Again, the plot is great. It's family friendly, which, yes, you would just assume with Looney Tunes anyway, but you never know. You never know, especially with all these public domain movies coming out. Looney Tunes isn't in the public domain, but what I mean is, like, characters like Mickey Mouse and Winnie the Pooh and things like that are starting to get these horror films because they're in the public domain. So you have to be cautious about everything, right? That being said, there are some cautionary elements that I just want to bring up. There's some potty humor in it. There's also some jokes about twerking, and there's a few innuendos. Now, all of them would go over a kid's head, and the twerking thing, truthfully, a kid would probably just laugh at it. There's nothing sexual about it or anything like that. It's done as a joke about social media influencers is what they're making a joke on. And if anything, kids will just laugh at it. Nothing sexual is done about it, and even the innuendos would go over their head. But I need to stress that they're in there just because I wouldn't want to, like, 10 of 10 promote this movie, and then you go and take your kids and you're shocked by this thing, and you're like, whoa, why did Tim promote this? What, like, why didn't he warn me about this? So there is your warning. There are quite a few of those jokes in there, but I don't think it's to the point where I would say a kid shouldn't watch it. Just be warned about that. I'd be advised that those are in there, okay? So that's another thing. Now, that's my review. Overall, I'd say about an 8 of 10 is what I'd give the movie. Probably a 9 of 10 if it didn't have those innuendos in it. Sorry, the lighting changed outside, and so I'm trying to get better lighting for you, but I guess you're just going to be stuck with the sun glaring down. That's a bit, there, that's better. All right, so now for the other content, okay? This movie was not distributed by Warner Brothers specifically. It was distributed by a small studio called Ketchup Studios, which you've probably never heard of. I never heard of them until this film. I don't think they had much of a marketing budget, hence why you probably didn't even know this movie existed until I made this. And again, it's in theaters. This isn't on streaming. It's a theatrical movie. The first Looney Tunes theatrical movie since Space Jam 2, which obviously failed in the first 2D Looney Tunes movie, either in years or the first ever in terms of theatrical. But it was distributed by them because Warner Brothers did not want to release this movie. They wanted to write it off as a tax write-off to just get money from it instead of distributing it. The movie was fully completed and they didn't want to release it. And they sold it off because they didn't have any faith in this movie. They sold the rights off for it, and thankfully this studio picked it up so that it wasn't just a movie that got completed, had all those people who worked on it in terms of the animation department, the voice actors, the script writers, the ones who edited, the director, all of that. Their movie didn't go to waste because thankfully this studio came and picked it up. But we need to prove that animated movies are worth it when they're 2D. That's something special about this film, okay? It's a 2D movie, which traditionally a lot of animators still want you to call it hand-drawn. And the reason is because 2D, it almost sounds like an insult to the craft that they put into it, because even though it's not the CGI 3D style, they do still put depth into stuff, and they add more dimension to the characters. I don't know why it got so dark suddenly. That was weird. But even though they add all this depth, so they still prefer hand-drawn. The reason I say 2D is because I know it's the standard name for it, and I don't want you to think it's literally hand-drawn on like papers and animation cells. It is still computer-generated, like cartoons are nowadays, but it's hand-drawn in that style, right? And of course, we know even when it's on the computer, it's still an artist drawing it. So even though it's not on paper, it is hand-drawn. That is not a lie. That's not saying anything bad. So typically you want to call this a hand-drawn movie and not a 2D movie, but I just had to get that for sense of, I know that's the more common term. Anyway, that's something special for movie theaters. It does not happen a lot anymore. You rarely see those movies, and that's because animation companies, the higher-ups, think that nobody wants to see these movies, that there's no audience for them. That's what the commonality is, the common thinking, and it needs to be shown to them that that's not true. I mean, if you talk to a lot of people, I'm going to try, nope, that's even worse. I don't know, the lighting got really bad. Natural outdoor lighting, it will happen. But we need to prove there's an audience. If you talk to someone, usually they'll agree they want to see more hand-drawn stuff, and studios just don't think that there's an audience for it. Unfortunately, like I said, this movie has not been marketed well at all due to the lack of a budget. And so right now, based on how well it performed in the box office the first weekend, which was not well, it made maybe $3 million on a $15 million budget. Based on that, it would appear that there's no interest, even though there is. They just didn't know the movie existed. My own family didn't know the movie existed. So like that's another thing. We need to show studios that people still have an interest in 2D films, in hand-drawn film. Does this mean every film needs to be that way? No, certainly not. But people still have an interest in seeing them. The other thing is, I'm a voice actor. I love voice acting. I plan to have a career in voice acting. I do it technically it's a hobby right now, but if you need voice acting, let me know. but that's what I do, and I love voice acting, and I love voice actors. Unfortunately, theatrical movies usually lose voice actors whose job is voice acting, right? It's not that they can't do normal acting, it's not that they can't do live action, it's that they know how gifted they are with their voice and their vocal range and things like that. And they know how to deliver a script when you're not face to face, right? Like, they can give emotion through just their voice. Again, big studios will be like, "Ooh, if we just have this guy Troy Baker, no one's gonna know Troy Baker's name. No, let's get Chris Pratt on this," right? And sometimes those live action actors can do voice acting, but more often than not, it's just not as good, and it kind of sounds fake, or you just hear their voice, right? So instead of being immersed in the film and in the plot, you're like, "Yep, I'm listening to Will Smith," right? Like, you don't think of Will Smith's character, you think of Will Smith, right? Whereas voice actors, especially because they're not as well known, you can fully get immersed in the character. Plus, again, they know how to deliver scripts through their voice. They know how to do that and make it sound believable and compel you and get you hooked in the story, right? And this movie actually does that. It has, like I said, it has Eric voicing the Looney Tunes characters. They didn't go, "Oh, it's a theatrical film, so let's replace him with some big name star. Who can we get to play the Looney Tunes in this movie?" No. They got the guy who's been voicing them. They got him to do it. And there is no big name star in this, which, yes, that's another reason why it wasn't marketed as well. But at the same time, like, this is a rare thing, and we need to show that this is also important, that audiences do like this. It really does sell you on the film, because you're not going the whole time of, "Yep, that's Eric doing the voices." You're like, these are the Looney Tunes characters, right? And this film is really just Porky Pig, Daffy Duck, and I'm forgetting her name. Is it Penelope? Penelope Pig? I'm suddenly forgetting her name. But the girl. And that's pretty much it. I think the official name is Bugs Bunny, Porky Pig, The Day the Earth Blew Up. But it's just them. But I'll tell you what, you really get sold on those characters and you fall in love with them. It's really great. So that's another reason is it's rare that you get to see voice actors doing voices for theatrical films, and it's another reason to support this movie. The other thing, again, as I said, is to show that hand-drawn animation still matters, and it's still important, and people still love watching it. And then the other reason is to show that Looney Tunes as characters matter. If we circle back to the beginning of this video, I said that I'm not the biggest Looney Tunes fan. But what I do know is, one, there's a bunch of Looney Tunes fans out there, and two, I do know the importance and significance of them. And Warner Brothers just doesn't care about them anymore. Max, their streaming service, they removed all of the original Looney Tunes cartoons off there, and they keep removing a bunch of cartoons because right now they think that they don't have an audience in children's programming. They think there's no audience. They're trying to transition back into more adult-oriented content and adult only. And they need to see that there is an audience for kids' entertainment that isn't just YouTube shorts, that isn't just brain rot stuff, like actual entertainment, actual cartoons, actual educational content. Like, these are all good things. And Looney Tunes is one of the most iconic IPs that Warner Brothers has, and they just don't care about it. There's a movie they were going to release, Wile E. Coyote versus Acme, and that they canned that. The film was done. It was finished, and they haven't distributed it or released it. They're trying to act like it doesn't exist. They will keep doing this to the Looney Tunes specifically, and probably their other content too, but specifically Looney Tunes. We need to let them know that these characters are still relevant. And the only way they're going to be relevant is if content gets pushed out. Yeah, if you don't make new content for them, and if you're not promoting the old content, then of course no one's going to care about the Looney Tunes, because no one's going to know who they are. That's not the audience's fault. That's the distributor's fault. And so we need to let Warner Brothers see that if this movie does well, they'll be like, "Oh, maybe we should have even done this. Why did we sell it? Why did we sell this movie? we should have realized it would have made a bunch of money. So what you need to do right now is get out and go see this movie. Support it as soon as you can, as much as you can. Tell your friends, tell your family, bring people with you to the theater. See it in theaters. Do not wait. And it is worth your money. I can guarantee that. It is worth your money. Go see The Day the Earth Blew Up in theaters. Please, please, please. Thank you.